go like this, just to present. So who am I? Besides being, I'm a board member of the Danish Scholastic Chess Federation. So that means I used to be the president of this federation for 8 years. So professionally, I actually work with evaluations in the educational system in Denmark. And as you can see, it's arguments when you're asking yourself, why should I conduct an evaluation of my scholastic chess project? It's probably something about convincing decision makers and funders, because different components here. There will be some students, pupils, and there will be a teacher, and there will be a teaching concept, and there's something you need to implement what's going on in this concept, and you need to measure that it's actually working. Could we measure it, and what's the best way to implement it? And there's some typical answers to this, and how do they use the materials, as Jesper pointed out? We don't actually know very much about that. And that's, of course, this is maybe the most important thing, at least when you're talking about evaluations. We need to know exactly what's going on here in this process when we are implementing the study. And that's why we should pick up more interest in this formative side. So how can we actually work and be better at understanding what's going on inside the project? It's simply not enough to have good materials and have good teachers and have a control group and everything. We need to know how to implement this, how to make it work. And that's also the kind of answers that everybody else wants, because they are exactly interested in, so what actually happened in the project. They don't believe that it's just the chess pieces, because you put chess pieces in the hand of a child, then they'll become more bright. There's probably more to it. So, yes. I'll give you just a short case thing going on. We actually exchanged one lesson per week. So that means that in the treatment group here, and we of course made a randomization before in the test group, the treatment group, and afterwards we can see they're improving significantly. And they're actually improving even more, significantly more. Somehow this is a little of a puzzle, and the principal researcher is this guy, Michael Rathlev, and he's just not any other guy. He's one of the absolute leading professors in Denmark. So he happens to be a chess player himself, but this is a guy that everybody takes very serious. And one of the most interesting things about this study was, as Mads mentioned, that boys in particular that benefited from this. And boys is maybe the toughest group to work on in the schools, because boys, they don't know how to be quiet and sit still and pick up learning, at least not in Denmark, probably not in your countries either. It's always the boys who are making trouble and will go to jail, and you know. And when I was in the interview here, of course they want to know something more. So what actually happened here? Why is it that you get better at math despite getting less teaching? It really doesn't make sense. I mean, you really need to come up with some explanations of what's actually what's going on here. This story about the non-cognitive skills. Some of you probably already heard this, because this is a growing focus in schools all over the world. We know that it's not only we cannot only rely on kids teaching, learning how to read and learn how to do math and language and so on and so forth. There's actually some basic skills or non-cognitive skills below that level, and that could be something like concentration. And school system now, there's not only normal classes here, there's also time for this. And the question is, how do we actually teach the kids to be better at all these things and similar things? There's no real methods here, so it's just up to every single teacher they need to know, okay, how can I work with this? But of course, when you introduce the game of chess to them, suddenly it's not so far away anymore. And that's the reason why we have in 50% of the Danish schools, they picked up chess and say, oh, we can use this to strengthen the kids' abilities on this level. Because, and that's what you already know, when you learn how to play chess, you learn a lot of other things. You learn how to be quiet. And it doesn't sound as a big thing, but it is a huge thing. At least when we're talking about the small kids, just to be quiet. When the lesson is starting, you need to be quiet. That can take several minutes, at least in a Danish school. You can spend 5-10 minutes before everybody is quiet and ready. Now, okay, I can learn something. There's also other things in this chess game, because you learn how to identify problems and also find a plan. How can I solve the problem? And at some point, you also will learn how to think more structured. You'll learn how to memorize openings, for instance, and you'll learn how to wait. That's maybe one of the most important things also among Danish school teachers, because modern kids, they're so impatient. It's what's going on around the game, so there's more to it, and that's an extra good reason why you should pick up an interest in how we can implement our projects better, how we can manage them, and what is actually going on, and be more curious on this formative evaluation perspective. So how can we study the process as it is going on? To want to learn something about this, you need to know how to do it, and funding could also be an issue, because this evaluation perspective is not necessarily a part of all projects, because it's not all the funders who want to pay for it. Sometimes it could also be a good idea with an external partner, and yeah, that's the concept developed. Actually, we also wrote a book together with the unions of mathematics teachers. So how can we actually find the similarities and find the mathematical themes in chess? And that is many different things. It's not just adding numbers. It's also about pattern recognition, because chess is you need to recognize a mate. Also help you in other fields, not just mathematics. Also in reading, you'll become a better reader because you learned this. So that's the primary argument.